Alright, guys and gals, we are breaking down UFC Fight Night Brian Ortega against the Korean Zombie, and we're starting off with Said Nurmagomedov against Mark Steagle of Japan. Given the odds, a little bit of a weird matchup. Said Nurmagomedov can be had for the low price of only minus 400, while Steagle comes back at plus 300. Said Nurmagomedov, despite the name, not related to Khabib, and based on what I've seen in the UFC so far, he's 2-1, coming off a loss by Raoni Barcelos, December 2019. Doesn't really look like he's living up to the name as much as I would think. He probably should be getting the job done against the UFC newcomer, but minus 400 is a little bit steep for me. So, gonna go with Mark Steagle here at plus 300. I think he makes some sense as a dart throw at plus 300. Not so much based on me being totally impressed with Steagle outside of the UFC, although he did beat Kai Kara-France in 2014. Not a big deal anymore, obviously, but plus 300, I mean, that's decent compared to what you're getting on Nurmagomedov at minus 400. If we had to put a percent chance on this, what's the percent chance Nurmagomedov wins this fight? 66, 67, 68. That's where I would have it, something in that range. And if that's the range, then you're getting a decent price on Steagle here, the plus 300. So that's a dart throw. I wouldn't mortgage my house to go around to the window betting on Steagle. But that's how I'm going to start off the night. Moving on to the next one. Gadzhimurad Antigulov against Maxim Grishin. Two Russian cats fighting a light heavyweight here. Maxim Grishin, lot of hype on this guy coming in to his last fight that he lost against Marcin Tybura, who seems to be figuring things out, by the way. But he had to fight Tybura last time on short notice again at heavyweight. He's coming back down to light heavyweight, which I think is probably where he should have been fighting in the first place. Antigulov, on the other hand, 2-3 in the UFC, 3 first-round losses, bad gas tank. Haven't been impressed with him whatsoever. They say that he's 33 years old. Doubt it. Definitely doubt it. Could be one of those Yoel Romero things where you don't really get to see the birth certificate, but I don't have any interest in betting on Antigulov at plus 275. It's nice big plus money. This kind of fight is not like the previous fight. I think Maxim Grishin comes out, gets the job done, minus 350. Although it doesn't look like it should be that on paper, you're probably going to find out on Saturday night why minus 350 was there. That's just my opinion. He probably is going to be able to knock him out. It's probably not going to go the distance. I think that prop's in the range of minus 130, minus 120. I would look at that if you're not totally into minus 350. But Maxim Grishin, that's the way I'm going on that one. Jamie Malarkey against Fares Ziem. Australian guy against France. What do we got here? 155. 1-inch reach advantage for Fares. 3-inch leg reach for Fares. So, Jamie Malarkey 0-1 in the UFC, but don't give him too much of a hard time. That was against Brad Riddell, who is looking pretty darn legit. He's not an amazing wrestler, Malarkey, but I think he's going to be able to have some success in that department here against Ziem. Ziem's a really bad wrestler, as you probably would have gathered from what I just said. The wild card about Fares Ziem, 0-1 in the UFC, a guy he fought first out, not super impressive, but it's been a year. He's a young guy, definitely can make improvements. We don't really know what we're getting from this guy, and that kind of shows in the odds. Jamie Malarkey can be had for minus 150. Ziem plus 125. On paper, Malarkey should be a bigger favorite than that. But I think a little bit built into those odds is just the question marks. Has this guy made any improvements? Has he not? So yeah, we don't really know. But for the purpose of this video, Jamie Malarkey's going to get my money on Saturday night, minus 150. I think that's just fine. The Iron Turtle, Jun Young Park, 11-4, South Korea. This is John Phillips, good old John Phillips. You guys can remember that fight against Khamzat Chimaev. There's no shame in losing to that guy, obviously, but boy, that was a bit of an ugly sight. We'll start off with Jun Young Park, very well-rounded fighter, can submit you, can knock you out, take you to a decision. Probably is going to be able to take Phillips down pretty easily, and that's not just based off the last fight that Phillips had against Chimaev. Is not opposed to getting taken down by people. Also not a big fan of getting back up. You know, we know what John Phillips is out there to do. So one-trick pony. 20 knockouts from his 22 wins. If he touches you with either hand, there's a reasonable chance you're going to sleep. But there's a reason they call Jun Young Park the Iron Turtle. Dude does not get knocked out, and I don't think that's going to start here on Saturday. Minus 255 for as low level of a fight this is. Maybe you don't want to bet on this fight because John Phillips can knock people out. And if there was ever going to be a dude to end that streak, probably Phillips, but I don't see it happening. Minus 250, not excited about it. Might be a parlay piece, maybe. Not a fight I'm super enamored with, but I like the guy who's durable against a one-trick pony, knockout guy. He's got the better wrestling. If he wants to, he could take him down. Minus 255, that's going to be my dude. On to the next one. Jillian Robertson of Canada. Poliana Botello out of Brazil. We'll start off with Jillian Robertson, who's 5-2 in the UFC. She could be had for minus 225. Not the greatest price in the world, but she does have some good submissions in wrestling. My favorite part about Jillian Robertson, really good ring IQ. She does not overestimate her hands, doesn't go crazy with any of this other stuff. She knows exactly what she has to do when she gets in that cage. I think she's going to go out there and try to wrestle Poliana to death, and that's probably going to be a recipe for success. Poliana, on the other hand, BJJ black belt, could catch her off her back. I don't think that's going to happen. She's 3-1 in the UFC, but she does have a little bit of a wild card factor here. Really good hands. 6 KOs from 8 wins. That's pretty good for 125ers in the female division. I don't think she's going to be able to knock Jillian out. Again, game plan. She knows exactly what she has to do when she gets in there. I think she wrestles her to death. She might get the finish, but minus 225 works just fine for me on Jillian Robertson. Well, that is where we're going on that fight. Mateusz Gamrot of Poland against Guram Kutaladze of Georgia. Georgian fighters. Love Georgian fighters. Mateusz can be had for the low price of only minus 300, which is pretty darn steep. But this is his UFC debut, 17-0 outside of the UFC. Not terrible. He's got really strong wrestling, really strong gas tank, and he always comes into his fights minus 700, minus 900. All these fights outside the UFC. Tough to find video of these other guys he's fighting sometimes. Don't think they were the strongest dudes in the world. Bit of a step up, but on the other hand, it's a bit of a step up for Guram as well. It's his UFC debut, 11-2 record outside. If he gets taken down, there's probably lights out for him, really. Gamrot's really good in top position with his wrestling. But the thing that Guram has, really strong striker. Dude can knock you out. You know, he's Khamzat Chimaev's boy. You know, at plus 250, Could he knock him out? Do we really know a lot about either one of these guys? Not really. And at least the last 2 or 3 fights from Gamrot that I was able to watch, some were impressive, some weren't that impressive. Although he has a 17-0 record, it's hard to call him inconsistent, but for me, he's a little shaky in a few of those fights. So I think there is an opening for Guram. If you can keep it on the feet, you can strike with him. Obviously a big if, but you're also getting plus 250. I'm going to take the dart throw on Guram here at plus 250. Moving on to Thomas Almeida against Jonathan Martinez. Thomas Almeida, 5-3 in the UFC, has taken nearly 2 years off of his last fight. Little bit of worry there, but he probably needed it given what happened to him before. 17 KOs or TKOs in his 21 finishes. He's got really, really good leg kicks, and I think that's going to be one of the main things in this fight for Almeida, because Jonathan Martinez is quick. One thing we know about Fight Island, no tiny cages, big cage. Jonathan Martinez has got a lot of room to roam. Thomas Almeida is going to really need to lean on those leg kicks to slow Jonathan Martinez down. I think he's going to do exactly that. Jonathan Martinez, 3-2 in the UFC. Super unimpressive UFC resume, but like I said, he's got the speed advantage. He's got the big cage. He could just tap, 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 run. That would be his best path to victory. I think Thomas Almeida is able to slow him down with leg kicks and then later on in the round start to close in and finish him off. That's how I see that one going. Now we are moving on to Claudio Silva against James Krause. Claudio Silva, 5-0 in the UFC. Looks really impressive, but he's only had 5 fights in the last 6 years. Terrible gas tank, this guy. He has not a ton of interest in going outside the first round. He's at plus 145. I'm not sure how interested I am in that based on the level of opponents he's fought, based on what I've seen out of him. James Krause, on the other hand, 8-4 in the UFC. You know, his last fight could have gone either way. 24 hours notice. He was up a weight class. It's a little bit of a nightmare. He is a smaller fighter, but he also doesn't get subbed very often. I think James Krause is going to be able to survive the first round. This might be a good in-play bet, because Claudio Silva may very well win the first round, but that gas tank is going to come back to haunt Claudio Silva. James Krause, if he survives the first round, is going to pick him apart in rounds 2 and 3, and it would not surprise me whatsoever if he gets a finish. Minus 165, James Krause. Looks pretty darn good to me. That's where I'm going with that one. Yeah, a bit of a weird one here. Jimmy Crute against Modestas Bukauskas. Jimmy Crute, another guy, 3-1 in the UFC. Super aggressive. It's, there's not a lot of people out there who really don't fear getting hit. Jimmy Crute is one of those guys who does not seem to care if he gets hit or not. What comes with that? A little bit of a questionable gas tank, but, he throws caution to the wind. He absolutely goes for it. If you're going to watch one fight on this card and you want to be entertained, this is probably it. The problem with Jimmy Crute, minus 340. That sucks. In a fight where both of these guys are going to go toe-to-toe and swing. We've seen everything. You watched that Impa Kasanganay knockout last week. Who saw that coming? I didn't. Anything can happen, man. These two guys, Bukauskas 1-0 in the UFC. The guy that he fought in his UFC debut was absolutely terrible. So it's very tough to take much away from that UFC debut from Bukauskas. This is a tough one. This is not one that I would bet on. I'm going to go with Jimmy Crute for the purposes of this video. I doubt that I have any money on it come Saturday. Minus 340. I just feel like he's got a better trajectory in the UFC. I think he's got a better camp. I think he's going to be able to get the job done. But if you're playing DraftKings or you want a crazy prop first round knockout, Bukauskas, you could do a lot worse than Modestas Bukauskas in this spot. But this is not a good betting fight whatsoever. I would not, outside of a crazy shot here or there. Recommend putting any money on that fight. Next one, I love this fight. Katlyn Chookagian probably has, the worst nickname of any UFC fighter ever. Feel sorry for Buffer every time he has to say, Katlyn, blonde fighter Chookagian. Dragons, there's lions, there's all kinds of stuff. I mean, blonde fighter. Anyway. Okay, Chookagian against Andrade. Did we get any of this stuff from before? We did, okay. So Chookagian against Andrade. Chookagian 7-3 in the UFC. I thought she was pretty unimpressive in her last fight against Valentina's sister. I didn't think Antonina Shevchenko looked very good or prepared whatsoever. That's just my opinion. I think she probably has a pretty bright future if she gets her stuff together, but she did not show up that day against Chookagian, and Chookagian looked like $1 million. That's why you're getting, such a tight line here in terms of the betting. Andrade, on the other hand, 11-6 in the UFC. She's only ever lost against, the elite of the elite fighters. Stepping up in weight, which is a little bit concerning. But I still think, she's got a little bit of a questionable gas tank too, Jessica Andrade, and it's the bigger ring, or the bigger octagon. Chookagian definitely has some ability to move, strike, and that can get a little bit frustrating. But I think at some point Andrade is going to get up close and personal, take her down, get that wrestling going. She probably gets the job done against Chookagian, and I absolutely love the price on Andrade at -145. Moving on to the main event of the evening. Brian Ortega against Chan Sung Jung, otherwise known as the Korean Zombie, the only way I've ever known the guy. Brian Ortega, 6-1-1 in the UFC, coming off a loss against Max Holloway. No shame there. That was also the best version of Max Holloway we've probably seen ever. It was an incredible performance from Holloway. He's coming off a 2-year layoff. Supposed to have this fight about a year ago, and then he tore his ACL. And that's, where the question marks start coming in for Brian Ortega. You can study his Instagram, you can study his Twitter, you can tell he's doing great and everything, but ACL tears are just nightmares. I got a lot of questions about Brian Ortega. +170, it's a pretty good price. It's definitely a pretty good price. But Korean Zombie 6-2 in the UFC. Is looking a lot better since coming back from his mandatory military service in South Korea. Think he's better on the feet. 8 of his 16 wins are by submission. That's a possible out for him. 5-round fight. They both have great gas tanks. This could go the whole way. That would not surprise me. But -200, again, not a price I'm absolutely in love with. But -200. Purpose of this video, Korean Zombie, that's the way I'm going. Once again, if you made it this far in the video, very much appreciate it. This is our second DraftKings/betting video. Got some fans on Twitter who follow us every week. Hopefully, if you guys made it this long, all of these picks will be released on Twitter again so everyone can see. And appreciate you lasting this long. And best of luck on Saturday night. It shouldn't be the worst fight card in the world. I definitely see some exciting fights here. Best of luck, and we'll see you next time.